My sister begged me to host her destination wedding, even offered to pay. I planned for 6 months. The week before the event, she sent a group message. Actually, we booked a venue in Greece. You're not invited. I didn't argue. I did this instead. 2 days later, her fiancé DM'd me. It started with my sister Ashley calling me out of the blue last October. I hadn't spoken to her much since the pandemic. We were never super close, but things were cordial. When I saw her name pop up, I assumed it was just a quick check-in or maybe some family news. Instead, she launched straight into this excited monologue about how she and Jordan, her boyfriend of 2 years, had finally decided to get married. She was ecstatic and said they were planning a destination wedding, and she wanted me to host it. Not attend. Host. She was serious about that. She wanted me to scout the location, handle the planning, coordinate the vendors, and basically be her unpaid wedding planner. Except she said she'd pay me. Not a lot, but enough to make it feel worth it. At first I thought it was a joke, but she sent me a spreadsheet she'd started. She was completely serious. She said I lived in Colorado, it was beautiful, and she loved the idea of a mountain wedding but couldn't be bothered to organize anything herself. I thought about it for a couple of days. I work remotely, and I actually enjoy organizing stuff like this. I've helped friends with events before, and part of me liked the idea of doing something meaningful for family, even if Ashley and I weren't close. So I agreed. She sent me a deposit through Zelle and a Pinterest board she slapped together in 20 minutes. That was it. From there, I became the point person for everything. I scoped out venues near Estes Park and Vale, did virtual tours, and got quotes. I negotiated with a caterer who only did seasonal menus, and found a florist willing to deliver to mountain towns. I coordinated shuttle services, set up a basic wedding website for guests, and even handled RSVPs. Every couple of weeks I'd send Ashley updates, but she barely responded. She was more concerned with choosing Instagrammable favors and whether she could wear 2 dresses. By March, I had everything locked in. The venue was this beautiful little lodge with views of the Continental Divide. It had room for 50 guests, all confirmed, including extended family from Florida and California. I paid deposits with my own credit card after Ashley said she'd reimburse me the following week. She didn't. I followed up a few times, and she'd say things like, "Oh, I thought I sent it already," but never did. I should have backed out then, but I didn't want to let everyone else down. Her fiancé, Jordan, wasn't really involved, but he seemed decent. I talked to him a few times to confirm arrival dates and such. He always sounded a bit uncertain, but I chalked it up to him being overwhelmed. The weird part came 2 weeks before the wedding. I hadn't heard from Ashley in over a month, and suddenly I got a group message from her to me, my parents, our Aunt Liz, and some cousins. It said, "Hey everyone, change of plans. Jordan and I decided to do something spontaneous and booked a private venue in Greece instead. Sorry for the confusion. We'll send pics." That was it. No call. No explanation. No mention of all the work I'd done. Just a shrug in text form. I didn't respond. My mom called me that night, confused and mildly horrified. She had already booked her flights to Denver. My aunt was furious. But I just said I wasn't surprised. Ashley had always had a knack for making everything about herself and treating people like props in her little productions. This was just another episode. I didn't argue. I didn't call her. I didn't even ask for my money back. Instead, I reached out to the venue and explained that the event was canceled for the couple but not for the guests. Then I called my friends and a few of the guests who'd already made travel arrangements. I asked if they still wanted to come. Almost everyone said yes. So I kept the weekend. I called the vendors and told them to go ahead. I swapped out a couple's name on the menu and adjusted the place cards. I turned it into a thank you weekend. Everyone who showed up got a surprise celebration with live music, mountain hikes, a killer barbecue, and a fully stocked bar. People said it was the best non-wedding wedding they'd ever attended. We laughed a lot, drank too much, and someone even brought a karaoke machine. 2 days after that weekend, I got a DM from Jordan on Instagram. It was short and said, "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't know she did that. I didn't answer right away. I stared at it for a long time. Then I clicked on his profile. There were no wedding photos. No honeymoon pics. Just a regular shot of him at a beach bar somewhere in Greece, looking tired. I still haven't replied, but I've thought about it almost every day. I finally replied to Jordan's message 3 days later. It wasn't that I needed time to figure out what to say. I just didn't want to open any door that would drag me into Ashley's drama again. But curiosity got the better of me. I told him we could talk, and he responded almost instantly. He didn't want to call. He said he'd rather message, which I actually preferred. He started off by saying he was sorry. Not just for what happened with the wedding but for everything. Then he said he didn't know the full extent of what I'd done until after they arrived in Greece. According to him, Ashley had told him months ago that I offered to help and was doing it for fun. He said she made it sound like I was being obsessive about it and needed something to do. That I was enjoying myself, and there was no real commitment. I told him I had invoices, contracts, and out-of-pocket expenses. He didn't seem surprised, just disappointed, maybe. He didn't try to argue. He just said, "That sounds like her." I asked him what changed. Why Greece? Why the abrupt switch? He said Ashley booked the tickets and the venue herself and told him they needed something more elevated and exclusive. That she didn't want to deal with backwoods mountain vibes and that her guests wouldn't appreciate the rustic aesthetic. I almost laughed when I read that. She never said any of that to me. Jordan said he didn't know the exact details of how many people were already booked to come to Colorado. She told him it was just a few and that I had only reserved a placeholder venue. I asked if they were even married. He said no. They'd gotten into a fight the first night in Greece, and he left the hotel 2 days later. He didn't say where he went or if he was coming back. I didn't ask. I think he wanted to vent, and I was the only one who might understand. He asked me what I ended up doing that weekend, so I told him. I sent a couple of pictures, nothing showy, just one of everyone gathered on the patio with the mountain sunset behind them, and another of my mom dancing barefoot with our cousin's toddler. He didn't say much. Just that it looked like a real wedding. A better one than the one he'd almost had. Then he asked if I'd heard from Ashley since the text. I hadn't. Not a word. Not even a refund. He said she was laying low and had blocked a few people who were asking too many questions. That sounded about right. She'd done similar things before when confronted, ghosted friends, made excuses, shifted blame. I told him not to worry about it, that I wasn't chasing her down for the money. I think that caught him off guard. He asked why not. I didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was pride. Maybe I didn't want to give her any more attention. Or maybe I just didn't expect anything better from her anymore. A week after that, my Aunt Liz called. She had spoken to my mom, who told her about the non-wedding weekend. Liz wanted to know if I still had the guest list and if I'd be willing to help her plan her anniversary party next spring. She said it didn't have to be fancy, just something with less betrayal. That made me laugh. I told her I'd think about it. It was strange how something that started so badly ended up pulling a few of us closer together. My cousin Kevin, who I hadn't seen in 6 years, told me during the weekend that he never really felt like part of the family until then. That meant something. I think a few people came expecting a disaster and left feeling like they'd been part of something rare, something unfiltered and honest. No speeches, no forced traditions, no expectations. Just people showing up because they wanted to, not because they had to. I eventually posted a few photos on my own Instagram. Nothing cryptic, no digs at Ashley, just a quiet album called Not What We Planned, but better. A few people commented, a few messaged me privately. One of my college friends asked if I'd consider doing this professionally. I didn't take that seriously at first, but the idea stuck in my head. I started reading more about event planning on the side. Nothing formal yet, but I've kept notes. I even helped a friend plan a surprise engagement picnic last month. It felt easy. Natural. Like maybe all that work didn't go to waste after all. Then, 2 months later, Ashley finally resurfaced. She didn't call. She sent me an email. A short one. No apology. Just a subject line that said miscommunication and a message that read, I think things got a little blown out of proportion. Sorry if there was confusion. Hope you're well. That was it. No mention of the money, the planning, the people she ghosted, or the wedding that never was. Just a vague shrug of a message. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my mom, who called it classic Ashley and told me to let it go. I already had. Jordan unfollowed her shortly after that. I only know because his name disappeared from her followers list. I didn't unfollow either of them. I just don't check anymore. There's a kind of calm that comes when you stop expecting people to be who they've never been. I think I stopped expecting Ashley to be a sister a long time ago. What I didn't expect was that planning her wedding would help me reconnect with my family in a way that felt more real than anything she ever offered. A few weeks ago, my mom came to visit. We drove up to that same lodge and had lunch on the patio. The owner remembered me. She said she still tells people about the surprise wedding where the bride never showed but the guests still danced. About a month after Ashley's email, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to answer. It turned out to be one of the vendors I'd worked with for the wedding, the photographer, Marcy. She said she was doing a miniseries on events that didn't go as planned and asked if I'd be willing to do a casual interview. Not for a magazine or anything public, just a small personal project she was working on. I hesitated at first. I didn't want to feel like I was turning Ashley's mess into a story, but Marcy said something that stuck with me. She said, sometimes the best stories come from when people still show up even after everything falls apart. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in Boulder. We sat for 2 hours. I told her everything from the initial call with Ashley to Jordan's messages and the weekend we salvaged. Marcy didn't ask invasive questions. She was more interested in how people reacted, how it felt to shift from planning a wedding to throwing a party with no central couple. She said she found the whole thing strangely hopeful. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but maybe it was. She asked if I still talked to Jordan. I told her no, not really, just that one stretch of messages. That was true. He hadn't reached out again, and I didn't either. But sometimes I wondered what he ended up doing after leaving Greece. I wondered what kind of person stays with someone like Ashley that long and what finally breaks them. In early spring, I got a card in the mail with no return address. It was handwritten, and the handwriting looked like Jordan's. It said, I hope you got to keep more than just the receipts. That was all. No name, no signature. I stared at it for a long time before I tucked it into the back of one of my cookbooks. I never told anyone about it. There was something final about it, like the last echo of a weird year that didn't quite belong to anyone. I didn't reply, and I don't think I was meant to. Life settled into something quieter after that. I started volunteering part-time with a local nonprofit that helps coordinate community events. I figured if I was going to put my planning skills to use, it might as well be for something useful. They were small things at first, senior center dances, school fundraisers, weekend markets. But I liked it. It gave my weeks a kind of rhythm. And it kept me connected to people in a way I hadn't been before. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and no one vanished halfway through a project. My mom came to one of the events and told me she hadn't seen me this focused since college. That meant something coming from her. Ashley sent one more email 6 months later. This one had an attachment, a PDF of an invoice labeled Venues and Vendors, Refund Breakdown. She had taken the numbers I'd sent her months ago and run them through what looked like a budgeting app. She claimed to have reviewed the details and determined which expenses she believed were non-essential or voluntarily incurred. Her offer was to reimburse me for 27% of the total. She framed it like a legal settlement, even used phrases like good faith compensation and non-binding understanding. I didn't even bother replying. I forwarded it to a folder I had started labeled Ash, do not open. That was that. Jordan liked one of my photos on Instagram a couple of weeks after that email. It was a picture of a neighborhood street fair I helped organize, nothing special. He didn't comment or message, just a quiet double tap. I didn't react. I wondered if he saw Ashley's behavior the way we all did now, or if he was still trying to make excuses for it. Either way, he seemed like someone who had finally stepped out of a fog, and maybe he was figuring out who he was on the other side of it. The only real fallout came when my cousin Ellen confronted Ashley directly a few months later at another family gathering. I wasn't there for it, but word spread fast. Ellen had apparently asked if Ashley planned to pull the same stunt at their brother's graduation party, and Ashley didn't take it well. There was shouting. Someone said Ashley cried. Someone else said she left early and told people the family was toxic. The usual routine. After that, her presence at family events became more sporadic. She'd show up to 1, miss 3, and then reappear like nothing happened. But people were colder now. They smiled and moved on. I think she noticed, but she never said anything about it. At some point, I realized I hadn't thought about the original wedding date in weeks. It passed like any other day. No bitterness, no flashbacks. Just a regular morning with coffee and emails. That's how you know something really is over, not when you say it is, but when you stop noticing the anniversaries of your own disappointment. My life didn't change dramatically after all of this. I didn't get famous or go viral or make some kind of epic transformation. But I did come away with a clearer understanding of what I will and won't tolerate. And I gained a small, strange kind of community in the process, people who showed up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. That was the end of it. Ashley's wedding never happened. Mine did, in a way, without a bride or groom, and it was better than what it was meant to replace. I learned that hosting people is sometimes more about listening than managing. That most apologies come too late to matter. And that you don't have to chase closure, it finds you when you're busy doing other things.